Hi there, this is Chuck with Pocket Snakes. Thought I would bring you a tip that you may like. So this is shoelace, flat, hollow, braided, pressed flat shoelace. It's polyester. And I've thrown this over the end of a drumstick to create a shape. And if you want to keep this shape so you can easily tuck stuff in it, you can kind of heat the polyester with a torch. You don't want to punch a hole, which is hard to do with polyester. So it's kind of already a fail, but if you want to anchor a shape into a piece of round cord, this is one way to do it. So this material is polyester, so it's super heat sensitive, but I want this cone shape to be open so I can push material in. And one way to do it is to just kind of heat the polyester to create a cone shape. You don't want to overheat it, but it'll lock that polyester into that shape. So when you pull it off of the cone, it'll hold an open shape. I'm gonna be doing some braiding here. Thought I would hang out, and those people that want to chat, I can read intermittently the camera. So I'm going to start with some green and black cord. These are laid out on the center bite, roughly. And I'm going to set up a pattern with these to do a square start on the center bite. So this pattern is a square start. Will turn into rings. I'm using a Sharpie as a mandrel just because of what I'm doing, but use whatever you want as a mandrel. Just have to find something to hold the braid open and let you make it uniform. So I'm going under 2 over 2 to start with in an 8 plate. Now right here, because we're going under 2 over 2, we need to be sure we lay this strand under the second one laid, under 2 over 2, and you can start to see a ringed pattern appear with this. So I'm going to snug this up just a little bit. Hey, stone something or other. What am I doing? I'm braiding a set of cuffs. So this is the start of a section. So this is creating a hollow channel. And then I'm switching from round plating around a mandrel. And when you have 8, when you have an odd number of strands, then you just shift where the odd strand is. But you go under 2 and over here, and then under 2 and over 2. And we're just switching to a flat braid. And that ring shape will become M's. So I'm gonna move this forward a little bit, rotate it down a little bit. not the best cameraman here. So under 2 and over, under 2 and over 2. So these are a form of rope cuffs that I make called Arizona cuffs, as opposed to Texas cuffs, which are rope cuffs. But flat braiding, and then we'll switch back to round pleating here in a minute. Yeah, we got 6 people on the live stream. Just started streaming live. I did it once by accident about 5 years ago. Didn't know anything about live streaming on YouTube. I still don't know that much. So I'm trying to get to where I have about 9 inches or a hand span. My hands aren't huge, so my hand span's 9 inches roughly. Okay, so now I've got about 9 inches, and we're going to switch to, I'm going to pull the camera back because I'm going to switch to round pleating. So the last stitch laid goes up and to the left, so I'm going to bring the left strand around. And we're going around the back and creating a hollow round braid under 2 over 2, so it's whip maker plate. It'll turn into rings of alternating colors. You do have to remember to keep the inside rotated as you go around the core. So we transition to a round type plate from a flat type plate. That same pattern under 2 over 2. But I have to braid anyway, so I thought I would turn it on live. People that are interested in braiding might learn something or have something interesting that they find in what I say and what I'm doing. Guess I don't have to talk, but it's really quiet, and so if I can share information or answer questions that people have, happy to talk. So anyway, I find braiding soothing, so I started with the center bite of some 7-foot long pieces, maybe a little longer than 7 foot. A few more passes to go. Anyway, so I'm plating up. Somebody's asking what I'm doing. I'm braiding up a set of rope cuffs that are paracord rope cuffs. I call them Arizona cuffs. They're a different type of cuff as opposed to as opposed to cuffs that you might see that are Texas cuffs. These are, I call them Arizona cuffs. So I've got about a 9-inch section here. I'm going to add a couple more plaits of each color. So then I'm going to turn and pull these tails through this section up here. And I'm going to show you that here in a second. And then it'll become maybe clear as mud as to what I'm up to. But it just popped off the pin, which is okay. Okay, I'm going to move the camera again. Back to my braiding hook. Let's see. Okay, so I'm going to put a pin in this. And I'm kind of in my own light, which isn't much fun. So there's a hole because I had this braided around a mandrel. And I'm going to feed like these 4 ends, and you can just tuck them through, but you'll fight it trying to tuck it through past about 4. So the first 4 are pretty simple to put through. The second 4, you probably are going to need a sheath of some sort. And so you put these 4 strands into a bit of shoelace material that's hollow. And then you can tug it through easier. It's a hint. You pull it through. You kind of want to keep the left and right side separate from each other. Maybe a little bit, I don't know. I'm going to pull the pin that was holding the braid. And pull this on, and that makes a loop with a half a twist like so. It makes a round loop for a wrist. And then down here, make sure that we've got our pattern where we want it. I'm going to pull it back. I've got more light. So this is the top strand. So you can bring it under 2 and over 1, under 2 over 2, under 2 over 1, under 2 over 2. And so we've transitioned to flat braiding. Anyway, so I'm just braiding a set of cuffs out of paracord. I mean, you can make rifle slings this way. You can make all sorts of things. But I've created a sliding loop up here by braiding on a mandrel, and I had to do a bunch of braiding anyway. Kind of restock stuff I've made. But But if you rewind this or go watch it later, because I'll post this later, you can see some tips I put in at the beginning for those who want to watch it later. If you like to braid and you're interested in braiding, you might like, share, subscribe. Any little bit of something you do helps. So I'm going to slide this back forward here. I'm going to create a lash here in a minute. Okay, sorry. Alrighty, so we have one sliding loop up here where it slides for a cuff. We're going to create another one right here. This is just a Sharpie on a bit of cord. So the last strand went this way. So we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then we're going to push the center that we braided around out of the way. We're going to braid with nothing in the center. So 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, and 8. I'm just going to snug these down a little bit because I'm going to lash this section right here. That way it doesn't come unbraided. So you can put a pin in it. Nice part with braided material like paracord is you can put pins and stuff. So I'm going to lay a bit of the shoelace material across. And I'm going to lay the tail of this across. So this is some aircraft wiring harness tape. I'm going to bring it around and under and cinch it down. 1. So I'm just making a lashing. 2, 3, 4. Okay. Tuck the tail up inside. You pull it through. Okay. It's pretty tight. Whoops. Don't know that I can work the needle back underneath. Let's work the needle back underneath. Just enough room. And of course I pulled the other end through, which I didn't mean to do. Okay, use a pair of pliers, create a lashing here, just cinch it. So this is Kevlar flat aircraft wiring harness tape. It's kind of nice to cinch things down. So you can't hardly break this stuff. It's got a 90-pound tensile strength or something. It's braiding. Makes a good lash off material. People ask how you finish braids. There's lots of ways to finish braids. pull the pin. You want to unbraid this. I'm going to take the longest string. I'm going to lay this piece of shoelace material. I'm going to go around this and cover that up with a lashing the other way. And it's not necessarily a functional lashing, it's just the other lashing is functional underneath. Okay, just undo it. One, two, three. Okay, I'll do 4. 3 is probably right out. So this just kind of covers up what holds stuff together. Makes it so you can't just pick it apart. So most of these strands I can get 3 fingers in here. Cut it off. That would end up being a little short. Dull scissors. Okay, a little weird trick to finish off paracord is you can use a torch to not melt the ends, but melt the section in here so that it doesn't unravel any further than you want. So then as it unravels, it'll go poof till it hits that welded section. There's lots of ways to do stuff. I'm just showing you what I do. There's probably better ways of doing stuff. I just don't like the hard plasticky feel on the ends of stuff. I like things to have feathery ends, but not fray. Beyond where I want something to fray. I can't see the screen right now if you're asking questions because I'm sitting down and finishing these. So give me a minute and I'll come back and I'll answer some questions and start the next one of these. Got one more in hunter green and black to do here. This is hunter green and black. There's also fluorescent green I've got, but this is just kind of a Kelly green, I think they call it, or hunter green. But it's welded down here so it won't come apart. So, I don't have my glasses on, so I'm having a hard time seeing. I don't know how much detail the camera picks up, but you can see it's bulged and kind of welded there. Now all 8 tails, all 8 strands of this whole thing are down here in this lash. So the left side and the right side all end up in one place. And I'll show you how these work here in a second. So, not that anybody cares, but I'll try and answer questions. Mostly I build supersonic whips. But this is another thing I build because people started wanting different stuff. Pull this out of the way. Grab my glasses because that way I can read the screen. Okay. So the center of this has some play, and this end has a sliding loop. So if this grabs hold of you stick this on a wrist and you cinch it up, it's got a wider area, so it's more comfortable, doesn't pinch stuff. And it won't move back the other way until you kind of compress this like a Chinese finger torture. So you actually have to unlock these in a certain way. But from this to this, so there's one more down. So I'm gonna find the center bite of these, and set the center bites into a square start, like so. There's a square start. You don't want to be tensioning it when you start, because all you'll do is pull the cord out of alignment. So I'm braiding around a mandrel. In this case, it's a Sharpie. The bad part is that I'm in my own light for the camera because I'm not a very good cameraman. So anyway, just kind of snug these up. I'm not putting a whole lot of tension on these, and Sharpies are pretty slick. Has a tendency to slip off the Sharpie. Okay. Okay, so we're going to go from a round braid to a much more to a flat braid. So under 2 over, under 2 over 2, under 2 over, under 2 over 2. You'll notice that ringed pattern turns into M's because you've sort of unwrapped it in an interesting way. So this particular thing I'm making goes from round to flat to round to flat to round. So it's a good practice for switching between round plaiting 8 to flat plaiting 8 to round plaiting 8 to flat plaiting 8. And it's only 8 strands, it's not 32 or something. And people that are interested in braiding or like watching stuff be made, this is maybe an interesting video. I've got a lot of braiding videos doing stuff. I make a lot of stuff. There's a lot of videos on my channel. Trying to get about 9 inches, so I'm below 9 inches, probably a couple more. Under 2 over 2, under 2 over, and under 2 over 2. And I like to leave it with whatever colored strand is on top. So now we're going to switch this to be a round braiding. So we'll take the top strand, which this one points to, and roll it around as though there was a mandrel there, under 2 over 2 on both sides. It's a fairly simple thing to braid. But if you like braiding or interested in the subject of whips, you learn how to make things, just want to ask questions, I'm starting to live stream so I can kind of chat with people a little bit. Although I can't text with you, I can respond in the video, I guess. Might take a few seconds for me to say something. And only when I can see the screen, which right now I can see the screen, but it's always funny how I think you have everything going when you're braiding, and if you miss something, you'll catch it later. Be, what was I doing? What was I thinking? Hopefully you're not thinking while you're braiding. Hopefully it's just automatic. That way it can be more zen. Now, this cell phone that I'm recording or streaming on is about 2 inches off the end of my nose. So I'm not trying to talk too loud. Probably mostly hearing air movement through my mouth or nose. Sorry about that. But you just have to go for a bit, and then you can switch. And I'm going to pull all these tails up through the round that I put the mandrel on the other end of this to make a loop. Okay, so there's about 9 inches. Put a pin in it here. Let's slide it back forward a little bit. Actually, let me just rotate it a little bit so you can see more of the hook, and rather than maybe you can drop the distance. Okay. So I had started with braiding onto a Sharpie, and so that leaves a round hole that's about a little bigger than this round braided section. I'm going to take all 4 of these strands and try pushing them through. This is one way to push them through. Now you can't push all 8 through that way generally because stuff will get jammed up. But I have a piece of scrap of round shoelace material. This is polyester. And it's handy because it's on a little needle. You pull it up. And it's handy because you can open up the end a little bit. You can take these tails, kind of tuck them inside. You can kind of grab and shove them. You just tug them through. Just going to snug up these four. Notice I've got my finger between these. Snug up these 3 or 4 just a little bit. I'm going to pull that little pin if I can, because it's really not doing anything. Pull it onto the round braid. So that makes a loop. You drop the pin down through this way, and just kind of snug these back up to where you have them now. The more you pull on this, the narrower it gets, but it's just a braided round section. We're going under 2/2, so the last plate was this way. So now we're going to go from round to flat. Let me see if I can back this up a little bit. So now we're going to go under 2 over, under 2/2. 2/2. We're just transitioning to flat braiding. So instead of rolling around something, so this flat can be used for all sorts of stuff. So if you make a mistake where you lost track of something, you just undo it a ways. And then you can just unbraid it to wherever you want. And quickly get back someplace. So, and it doesn't really matter whether you start on the right side or the left side, as long as the pattern is right. You can go under 2 and over from either side to switch from round to flat. One side will get tucked under more because you're going from around 2 and or under 2 and over 2 and around to a flat. I like to start on the right side more than the left side. My hands like doing it a little bit better. Some pretty patterns. I'm not pulling much tension on this, but I could pull more tension. It's just, this is paracord. It's a fairly flat, this flat braid has a lot of, it'll seat and adjust and move, and doesn't have a lot of friction. Main thing is you want consistent tension throughout. Doesn't have to be much. I can't see the screen, guys. So I'll stand back up here in a minute. Okay, so I have about 9 inches, and I want the green to be on top, so I'm going to go one more stitch. But I'm going to go back forward with the camera. And I'm going to pop this loose. And I'm going to bring this way, drop the T through. Under 2 over 2, 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 and under 2. Over 2 will bring us back to a full pass of 8. So it'll be 4 pairs on the back side. 1, 2, 3, 4. You kick this back out of the way. And now we're braiding around nothing, so this will be hollow. I'm going to snug these up. 1, 2, 3, 4. You'll see it rotate. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's snugged up. And then I'm going to rotate this down a little bit. Okay, so lay this little shoelace thing down and lay this in the same direction. Come up under here and form a lashing just to lash that braid off. Now this material is para-aramid or Kevlar type material. It's aircraft wiring harness tape, and the 2 tails will go underneath, and so they're pinned down by tension when you're done. Grab a pair of pliers. Grab a pair of pliers. Now that lashing will stay in place and hold the braid together and the knot together. Pull the pin. Find one of the strands, preferably a long one. I did black last time, so I'll take a black one. Lay the shoelace down. I'm going to wrap this and tension it 1, and tension it 2, tension it 3, and tension it, and then I'm going to tuck the tail. Pull through. And that hides the lashing. And then I like 3 finger widths, roughly. And these are some dull. I need to sharpen these scissors again. I've got better scissors, but when you're cutting Kevlar with them, they don't stay sharp. weld these so that they don't unravel beyond a certain distance. That way they create a little poof dip. So if you pick this apart, you'll see it'll then be a frayed knot, or frayed. But it won't unbraid past where the weld is. So you end up with floofy bits instead of hard bits, because hard bits are scratchy and floofy bits are soft. Hopefully some things I say or do here will help you, or maybe save you some time and work, but no promises. You can see the shininess of the weld. There's paracord left on its own. Will turn into a bunch of frayed whatever. I used to try tying knots, but it takes a lot of material to tie big knots. So the more you work on this and pull it, the more it cinches down. Is really beautiful. You can work some of the tension, so you can close this up by wiggling it. If you wanted a little more closed to have more drag. But these are designed to be a low impact kind of cuff. So cinch it down. Cinch it down. And if you have weight on it or whatever, it has a low impact on, it's more spread out, the force is more spread out on stuff. To unlock them, you press them together and slide it, but they lock down because they're like Chinese torture, finger torture puzzles. The more you pull, the more it grips. But anyway, so there's another pair. Now I gotta go to red. I'm gonna go look at the camera here, see if anybody had any questions. All right, so now I'm gonna do some red ones. Let me see if I can get the camera into a better. It's gonna be a little annoying. It's hard to say what the best way of doing this is. Like, I've been experimenting for a little bit, trying to figure out how to get this where I need it to not be in my way. These are 4 strands that are about 7 feet long. I want to find the center bite. I hung them on the center bite, but they're not going to be centered very well until you put the 4 tails together. bounce them. Bounce them. So anyway, I'm just sitting and doing some braiding, and hopefully you find braiding a soothing thing, not frustrating. You can use this same pattern for doing cool dog leashes and stuff. And switch between flat and round. I like to do a full 8, that way I know I've got all 8 of the strands around the core before I go to flat. So just snug it down. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. You see that? So under 2 over. Under 2 over 2. And the pattern just is like that simple. Switching between flat to round. You get a good result every time. This first strand will tuck, but that's because you're going from under 2 over 2 to under 2 over 2 flat. So that strand's going to tuck just a little bit. If you want it more proud, you can pull it out. Under tension, it's going to tuck anyway. So it's a nice red. But I've got a few hours of braiding to do, so my hands are tore up from braiding the last whip. So this is not as impactful on my fingers and my hands. So I'm not braiding under a tremendous amount of tension. I got to get some of this work done too. So I kind of like this red. It's kind of a nice shiny red. Catches the light well. Right about 9 inches. Am I still in frame? I am. So back this up a little bit. I'm going to transition to a round braid, so I'm rolling this around an invisible stick in the center. There's no stick. I'm wrapping the strands around the center under 2 over 2. And that'll make a hollow round braid. It's not round braiding, but it's whipmaker plate with nothing in the core. Just under 2 over 2. This creates a hollow section of rope between the bands of the cuff. Or you can use it for a dog leash. Although for a dog leash, I'd put a round piece of 550 in the middle. This is 650 cord that's gutless cord. But by rolling this strand around, it helps it be smooth. And I'm not putting a ton of tension because I'll pop it. I'll pop the Sharpie off of the string. It's when you know you put too much tension, I guess. And I thought I would just set up the camera live while I was braiding. And intermittently, I can kind of look at the back of the camera now. The camera is, it's a cell phone with a busted screen, so yes, it works for what I'm doing, but I can't see very well on the screen, even with my glasses. But there's some nice sounds to the cord. Okay, so now I'm going to go under 2, over, under 2, over 2. I'm switching to flat. Oh, so you can switch to flat and pull the whole thing through. It's a little bit faster. Under 2, over. Under 2, over 2. I enjoy sucking and flatting, or braiding, whatever you want to call it. And we're getting to right about our 9 inches again. Okay, so I'm going to put a pin in it. The pin is actually separating the left and right sides. Running into myself. Okay, so you can pop this loose. 4 ends on one side, tuck them up and through. If your mandrel's big enough, you can also just tuck it in between the ones that were there. You can use them to guide it through. You don't have to use a shoelace thing, but it makes it a little bit easier. So tug, just snug it down on all 8. And I was probably off camera for that, which is annoying. Okay. Pull that through. And notice the pin is still here, so everything's the same as we left it. Pull the pin. Go. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we should have 4 crosses. Yep. Got 1 more. Okay, now we're going to flip the core out of the way, and I'm just doing a round braid with no core. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Snug these down a little bit. Put a pin in it. Create a lashing here. One, 2, 3, 4. You could use thread, you could use a lot of things, make a whipping or a little lashing. Of course, I'm dropping stuff. Okay. So bring this over. So 1, 2, 3. This is just a decorative wrap. It also helps keep it in place, but it's not actually the thing that's keeping it from unraveling. You've got 3 fingers worth of stuff. And I found it with my ear. Quick weld these so they don't unravel more than half an inch or quarter of an inch. And I have my glasses on. I still can't find the center of it. So if you fray these, they won't fray beyond that point for a long time, because they're fused. Anyway, so these will slide fairly well. I'm going to braid some more. Most of the time I don't sit and talk to myself while I braid, so I don't know what people prefer, whether it's better for me to be saying silly stuff and talking and braiding, but it's fun to make things. It's fun to say, come up with stuff and then create it, make the picture of what was in your head, have it turn out. Transition to flat. Switch into a round plate. Stick flat. Anyway, just kind of plugging away with this and switching between round and flat. Got to get 9 inches of flat, 9 inches of round, 9 inches of flat to make the wrist loops to be about right. And depending on the person, you may want to make the wrist loops bigger. These aren't super complicated to make. They're just, they are a process. And just trying to get it to where you can lay the braid that well and that flat in certain materials is a challenge, because as you tension it, it'll change up a little bit. Okay, I'm going to take the 4 from the right. I'm going to try tucking it through. There's 4. Take these 4, try to tuck them into the shoelace and not stab myself with the needle. The more you play with this stuff, the more you'll end up, you'll always find whatever's sharp with your feet or with your hands. Hopefully not with your face. But if there's a way to stick yourself, or you drop the tip of a razor blade somewhere, you're likely to find it later. It's funny how that is. Pull that through. Got a half twist. That's about where I like it. 1/2 twist on this one. Pull the pin. Okay, so we're going to braid around the rope center. One, two, three, 4 pairs. Pop the core out. And I'm going to just snug these 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Pin it. try to get one more lashing out of this scrap of Kevlar material. Okay, so I'm going to hold this sideways, keep the tension on it, and I'm going to try and fold it up through. Hopefully that whole thing was muted because I was on the phone. I was on the phone. Somebody called for help. But if you have any questions, feel free to text them there and I'll try and answer them. But I probably will end up ending this little live stream because I'm going to have to go cut some more material so that I can braid some more different colors. I got to do the same thing in purple and black, the same thing in fluorescent green and black, and the same thing in burgundy and black. So I'm going to be busy today with this. But this is low impact on your hands if you're braiding, so you're not braiding with high tension. You're not creating a lot of abrasion, so I alternate between braiding high impact stuff on my hands like supersonic whips with pretty good tension to low tension things that take less for my hands to recover from. So my hands are, I call this resting my hands. Some people would call this work, but for the amount of oomph I put into stuff on a regular basis, this is not hard work. This is just playful, simple braiding. I don't think I actually torched that one very well. It's hard to judge when you're working with something that's a few thousand degrees. How much is going to be too much? But I'll see if I can show you how these work, because not everybody knows. So this pair of cuffs that I make out of paracord, they're a form of rope cuff like Texas cuffs. And it locks down, but the amount of pressure is distributed on these. And then to unlock these, they're like Chinese finger torture toys. You have to compress the braid to unlock it so that it'll slide. So they're one of the things I make that's a lower impact on my hands. It's still a braided thing. But I don't just make whips. I make all sorts of little gizmos. So I'm going to see if I can cut. So this is going to be burgundy. And so I've got that up on the hook. So each of these strands is 30 feet long. And there's only 2 strands here. It's black and burgundy. And then these 4 will become, the center bite will be on the hook here. This center bite, so now I've got 4 strands of each. And now these strands are about 7 feet long. And I can do some burgundy ones. It's not the most exciting thing, but if I didn't find breeding fairly soothing, I wouldn't do it. Like this is the whip I was braiding the other day. And it's hard to actually see all that well. And it's hanging next to me. 2 burgundy, and 2 black. Let's double check the center bite. It's pretty close.